minutes now before 5, Talk Radio 702. But what are the things that keep us apart and divide us as a nation? Now, the Institute for Justice and Reconciliation has released its Reconciliation Barometer survey for 2013. Among other things, it reveals that class inequality is still the greatest impediment to national reconciliation. Let's talk quickly to Kim Whale. Now, Kim Whale is the project leader, Reconciliation Barometer for the Institute for Justice and Reconciliation. Kim, nice talking to you. Good afternoon.
Thank you. Good to be on the show.
Thank you very much. Just give me a bit of an explanation of what you found then through the survey.
Okay, so what we found is that South Africans are saying that class inequality is the greatest inhibitor to reconciliation in South Africa. But when we dig a little deeper and look at the racial makeup of class inequality and material exclusion, using what's called the living standard measure, we see that material exclusion is still a racial issue in that the majority of the materially excluded are Black South Africans. So even though class is the main inhibitor, this also has racial inflections.
It's quite interesting because some people are saying that there's another dimension in the divisions in this country, and that is intraracial inequality as opposed to interracial inequality.
Yes, that's very interesting. Do you mean equality within races, so between Black South Africans within races?
Yeah.
Yes, definitely. And I think what we've seen happening is with the transition to 1994, we have seen change. There has been integration. There's where the middle and upper classes were predominantly white before, the middle and upper classes are integrated today. We have Black South Africans, white South Africans, Indian South Africans, coloured South Africans. It's mixed when we look at the middle and upper classes. But when we look at the lower classes, they continue to be predominantly Black South Africans. So, yes, there is intraracial inequality, especially amongst Black South Africans. With white South Africans, what we find is that in our survey, we still don't find white South Africans in the lowest LSM group. So, intraracial inequality, yes, to a degree. But when it comes to material exclusion, we don't find many white South Africans in poorer classes.
So it pretty much confirms what one report just a couple of weeks ago by Goldman Sachs said about the divisions, where they said that, for instance, Black people in South Africa, or at least 85% of Black people in South Africa are poor, 87% of white South Africans are either middle class or upper middle class.
Yes, that's true. And also what we found in the survey, because we're asking about questions around reconciliation, interracial integration, that when we ask South Africans how much they have contact, either just everyday talk with someone of another race group or more intimate socializing with someone of another race group, the figures are very high for the middle and upper classes, but for the lower classes, the figures are very low. So in a way, what this is showing is that there's integration for the wealthy and the middle classes, but for the poor, they're still excluded from racial reconciliation. So it's really pushing us to think more deeply about what it means to reconcile in South Africa and the class element of reconciliation.
Just a quick and final one that I saw as well, according to this survey. HIV and AIDS, apparently seen as another big factor in terms of separation among people, but how?
Yes, well, I think that speaks to the stigma of HIV and AIDS. Another important facet of that finding is that when we looked at that in terms of LSM groups, it did show that the lower LSM groups were more likely to highlight this as a key divisive issue, which is telling us that HIV/AIDS, for instance, affects people who are in the lower and middle classes, lower classes, well, they are highlighting it more, and I think it very much speaks to issues of stigma.
All right, Kim Whale, let me thank you very much for your time this afternoon. I really appreciate your time. Well,